right, and now we welcome on fan favorite Emily Sisson after making yet another Olympic team. I love doing marathon recap episodes with you. This time around, like you're just back in Providence. Usually you're in a nice warm weather climate. How now that you've had a couple days to process things, how's the body feeling? How are the spirits? And no vacation?
Yeah, not yet. We're thinking of planning one. It's funny. We were gone for 3 months, so we actually just wanted to get back to Providence. And I was texting my friends the last few weeks, and I was like, I really miss Providence, guys. Like all my friends that are here. And they're like, no, you don't. It's so cold here right now. Like you're in Arizona, you're in Florida. Like just stay there. But I actually really did miss it. So I'm happy to be back. And we're gonna stay put for a little bit, but we are planning a long weekend. I think we're going to go to Miami to visit some friends next month. So that'll be a little vacation and we'll take a longer one after Paris. Oh yeah, and
Okay.
body's feeling really good apart from some sore quads.
All right, there we go. No,
Yeah.
so I guess like comparatively to some of these past marathons, like, yeah, I'm sure an all-out effort to break the American record leaves your body wrecked. This one, like, I feel like it was probably a different kind of, pain and soreness immediately after the fact, just because of like the conditions. How did this one compare to other past marathons?
Every marathon has its own story. So I feel like I've come out of them and gone into them completely uh like a little different. So this one I actually like I feel like good apart from just having the sore quads like I said. And I found the conditions actually like I know it was warm, but I didn't feel like they affected me that much. I felt like I felt like I handled the heat well. So that I was happy about that. And yeah, different marathons, like there's been some marathons where like my debut, I actually like injured myself 15 minutes before the start of it. So coming out of that, I like was dealing with that injury. And then Chicago, when I set the record, I actually came out of that one pretty well too. But like they've all been different. So every marathon has been just its own unique experience and story. So I will never assume I know it all when it comes to the marathon.
For this one in particular, I guess like you spent 3 weeks in Florida in the lead up to that. How crucial was that in terms of like the preparation to get ready for the conditions? You were a big proponent for moving that start time. I remember leaving the Airbnb at like 8 a.m. and being like, oh, this is perfect. Like, why didn't
Yeah.
they run the race at this time? And no, we knew it was going to be hot. But for you,
Mhm.
you actually did alter your training to, try and acclimate.
Yep.
So how did that, work to your advantage?
I am really thankful that Orlando moved it to 10. I think if it started at noon, it would have been completely different. There would have been, yeah, it would have been a lot harder on a lot more people. So I was happy they moved it forward. 8 a.m. actually was cold. I had like a puffy winter jacket in the warmth area, and I was like, I feel like this looks dramatic, but it's like it's cold in the shade right now. So it was in the 40s, I think, that night. But but yeah, so what did I do to prepare for the heat? Well, we went to Phoenix for the first 6 weeks of training. We were debating, do we just go to Florida for the whole thing, or do we go somewhere that I'm familiar with training? And we decided because it was such a big, important race, we're like, well, let's not go spend 12 weeks somewhere that we've never trained before. Like, just in case, like, you never know. You just don't know where to run or where to get treatment or any of that really. So we went to Phoenix first, and I focused on really when I was there just getting us fit, like getting fit and getting strong, and getting the fitness up. So I was advised when I talked to a few, I guess, experts about heat training with what to do. They all told me don't do your workouts in the heat of the day. Just do your workouts when you normally do your workouts because you need to be fit to make a US Olympic team. And I was like, that makes sense. So I did all my workouts at like 9:30, just normal workout time. But they said on my recovery days, they're like sleep in, just go later, start closer to the heat of the day, or just start like your first one run later, so you're finishing closer to noon or something. So that's actually really all I did in Phoenix. I just slept in. I wore on most of my runs, I wore a long sleeve, and part of it was I thought, well, maybe like that'll help. But the like part of me was also like I didn't like my skin being in the sun so much, so I just wanted an extra layer of protection. So when we got to Florida, I decided to on the cold days or the days it wasn't super hot, I'd actually wear like a windbreaker or something that was like loose so that I could create like a bit of a sweat going. And on the days that it was humid and hot, I just wouldn't do a thing. I would just go run in the weather. So that was about it. I tried training the gut, which is something they talk about. When you're running a hot marathon, you're going to be drinking more to replace your sweat loss. But I don't think that actually went so well. So I need to go back to the drawing board on that one. So that's all I did, though. I didn't do anything extra any more than that.
Did this one feel a little bit different? Because I know like Ray Tracy, old school coach, like has been doing it for, decades, that he knows what works. But from my conversations with so many of these other pro runners leading up to the race, there was just like a whole nother science element that was dialed in. It was like going to, learn more about like the heat training or anything like that. Did you and Ray have any sort of specific alterations or conversations about like, hey, let's experiment with this? Or was it just sort of like, I mean, that approach that you described seems just fairly like you could have done that
Yeah.
in like the early 2000s. There wasn't anything
Yeah.
all that revolutionary.
Ray thought I didn't need to do anything. He's like, "You're good in the heat. Don't worry about it." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna maybe prepare a little bit more." So I did reach out to USATF, and I talked to some experts that work at the USOPC and just reached out and got their opinion. There was more that I could have done, but I didn't want to overthink it. So they did offer to fly me to Colorado Springs to do the actual sweat rate testing on a treadmill, and it just seemed a bit. That seemed like it just a bit too much with everything else we had going on. So they helped me come up with this plan, and yeah, I felt good about it. So yeah, really thankful for their help with it. But yeah, Ray was like, "Don't worry about it." I was like, "Okay, I'll do just a little bit of homework." But he was right. So yeah.
When we get to Orlando and it's, the days leading up to the race, how different did this feel compared to, I guess you've tried and buried like the ghosts of Atlanta and just like what that was like 4 years ago. But getting ready for this marathon, now you've had enough under your belt where you go to these major marathons. And yes, like there are parts of it where it's your job to do sponsorship obligations and make appearances and whatever it might be. You get in your shakeout run, you have to go to the press conference, and with the trials they really kind of dialed it down for these pros where it was just sort of okay, press conference, and it was super short, like there wasn't that much like hanging around. And so a major marathon compared to the Olympic trials, what are those pre-race moments? How are they different?
I actually wouldn't say it's too different than like when I go to Chicago. I feel like I don't have that many commitments. New York, you generally have a few more. London, I had none, which was awesome. So that was really nice. But yeah, I actually didn't think it was too different than the what I had to do pre-race in Chicago. The biggest difference is it is a little bit more. It's more intense. There's more pressure. I I was saying the shame going into it. It just feels very black and white with the trials. It's, top 3 or not. Whereas in any other major marathon, there's like more room like for nuance. You can have a bit of an off day, like I did in Chicago this past fall, and still feel like overall pretty good about it, and still walk away with some good takeaways. But at the trials, yeah, it feels a little bit more intense for that reason. Like you really hope you have a good day and things click and you can finish in the top 3. But yeah, so I think that's where a lot of the pressure comes from, is that.
One of the ways Scott Fauble described it before the race was just he was hoping to find a freedom while racing, that we do put all this pressure in the sport on the Olympics. And like,
Mhm.
if you don't make it, like your career, yeah, there's just all these positive moments. You can still have a really good career, but the exclamation point and the cherry on top is always like the Olympics. And in 2021, I guess or in 2020 after Atlanta, you still had that year to go and get that for yourself. Like at the, you already had the Olympics. And did that pressure of coming in was it from being the American record holder? You already have that Olympic title to your name. So how do you describe the pressure that you felt?
So yeah, I think it mostly comes from I just really want to make the team. I really want to be representing the US at the Olympic Games. So there, I mean, there is outside pressure too, of course, but yeah, it's just something I I really wanted for myself. So I think, wait, what was the question originally? What was it that you asked?
Just, I guess, like, how do you describe that pressure, and why do you feel pressure to make this team when you've already made a team before, you've already had all this success,
Right.
yeah, as a marathoner?
Yeah, I really wanted to make this team because it was so special qualifying for Tokyo, the first Olympic team to make. There's like that will be a special moment forever in my life. But this did feel different. I really wanted to qualify in the marathon. That was something I've always dreamt of doing. Was getting to represent the U.S. at the Olympics in the marathon, and I also wanted a little bit more of a normal Olympic experience. So I wanted to go back. I wanted to try to better my performance, and I wanted to experience the Olympics kind of how I always imagined the Olympics to be. Getting to celebrate with your support team there, getting to have, getting to have a bit more of a normal experience. So that really motivated me throughout this build was that, and yeah. So I will say though, like during the race, I actually I didn't feel great pretty early on. And one of the things I was proud of from how I handled it was I was talking a bit earlier about how it feels so all or nothing, black and white. You make the team or you don't. At mile 8, I actually got another side stitch, and my like side started to cramp and clench, and I was like, oh no! Like I thought we figured this out. I didn't think this was gonna happen. Um, and I kind of got a little bit down for a minute because I was like, I don't know if this is going to be my day. But I did, instead of kind of thinking all or nothing, Olympic team or bust, I did just start breaking the race down and started making all these process goals where I was like, okay, like it might not be your day, but let's see like how long you can hang on for. Let's see how long you can, um, no pun intended, gut this out this time and stick with it. Let's get to like half marathon, and then let's get to 18, and then I just kept making these checkpoints in my head, and I kept making these little goals to try to meet along the way. And so when I finished, I was just elated because early in the race, I actually didn't think it was going to happen. So, so yeah, I say it's black and white, but I think when you take a step back and if you kind of break it down, that's probably the best way that I can handle something that carries a lot of pressure with it.
That those cursed side stitch, like we
I
talked
know.
about this in October, and I think I even asked, I was like, so how are we going to make sure that it doesn't happen in Orlando? And you were like, it's not going to happen in
It's
Orlando,
not going to happen.
it happens at mile 8. In the race itself, just sort of like, is it at mile 8 that you kind of wake up and you're just like, oh, we're doing this, like this is the
Yeah.
race? But even before that, there had been like a little bit of a breakaway when we sat down with Clayton right after the race. We were kind of going through it, and it's sort of like there's this massive buildup to this moment. And in those early miles, it's just kind of, everyone getting into position, taking, it's a temperature check of the rest of the field, and you're kind of still not all right. It's the race still hasn't started. For
Yeah.
you, when did that race start? Because there was that early move, and I think it was Kira kind of pressing from the front, to
Yeah.
like it was
To
an
get it
injection of
started.
pace. And that's sort of when I felt like the women's race started much sooner than the men's race.
Well, so I knew that was going to happen. So originally, Kira and I had planned on trading off the lead every 2 miles. And we talked about it the day before. We were going to do 5:25 pace because we thought 2:22 would win the race. So we were right about that. um, so our goal was to just get it out and get it started. And I asked Ray after the race why he wanted me to run it that way. And he said his biggest concern was it starting out slow and getting so bunched that it was hard to get to like my bottles. And he's like, I just wanted to make sure you were fueling. So, but oh yeah, I got sidetracked there. So basically, we were planning on trading every 2 miles, but yeah, around mile 8, I started cramping. So I was like, luckily, I actually am really happy that I did Chicago in the fall because I learned some things, and if I hadn't, I probably would have been caught off guard and I wouldn't have known what to do. So I had to pull back, and I was like, Kira and I were supposed to be working together, and I texted her after the race to explain why I had to stop helping. But pretty much immediately I just went to the back of the pack and I'm like, all right, relax, like focus on your breathing, maybe like massage your side a bit, and there's one other thing. Oh yeah, just slow down. Like that's what I was like, just relax. And it actually worked. It eased off. And then eventually like it wasn't cramping anymore. My side just felt like a little bit tight. And so I feel like if I hadn't done Chicago, I wouldn't have known what to do. and and so I think that just kind of validates to me the importance of experience. The more like I always felt like the more I do something, like that's how I typically gain the most confidence is through, I guess, trial and error, just experience. And if I hadn't done Chicago, I wouldn't have known to kind of have a plan, or I wouldn't have had an experience to draw off of. So so yeah, I don't know where your question started, but I think it had something to do with Kira and the pace. But I did know that I did know that was going to happen.
Well, all right, and now I need to hear just sort of the plotting that took place with you
Yeah,
and Kira. When did this conversation take place? We posted that fist bump photo
yeah.
on Instagram the day before. I mean, had the plan already been set in motion?
It was on stage right there. We just turned into yeah. No, our coaches actually had talked. So we have the same agent, Ray Flynn. So Ray Flynn was he connected Scott and Ray, and it was a good plan. Unfortunately, we both had to back off of it, uh, but yeah, I don't know. I think in the marathon you have to be prepared for pretty much anything. And I did text Kira after, and of course she was like unsurprisingly like so nice about it. So yeah, but maybe in the future we can work together again. We actually, I forgot we had done this, but she was like, yeah, remember when we worked together at New Haven? And I was like, oh yeah, we did do that a couple years ago. We like traded off the lead like every mile to get the pace going. And I think we both like that kind of racing style, that kind of aggressive, like hard, like just grind it down. So yeah, I think we just have similar styles.
So in the women's race, it felt like, it was bunched up for a while. There was just for a while, it was like a pack of six that eventually grew again back to like 10 or 12. And it stayed that way for, it felt like the longest time. In talking with the guys, like there's definitely, more of like an ego, confidence thing where it's sort of like, oh, if this guy goes, we're not going to cover that move, or, we're going to cover all moves up until a certain pace. So for you to watch when Fiona, I think, ultimately starts to press from the front, what's going through your head at that moment? Because it is her first marathon and you're the
Yeah.
experienced vet. So how do you kind of calculate that move?
So I remember really like I tried to stay as relaxed as I could for as long as I could, and I actually like really enjoyed running in the pack. I don't often run in the back of a pack, but I was doing it on Saturday, and I was like, why don't I do this more? This is really nice. So um, I I was really focused from mile like 8 to 18 on just focusing on my breathing and just staying relaxed. And as I got closer to mile 18, I remember thinking like, okay, like stop thinking about like your side, like it's like you're good. It's time to race. And it was like right around that time, whoever was in third, uh, I think behind Fiona and Betsy started to like fall off a bit and create a gap. And it was like right then my like race instincts kicked in. I was like, okay, move around, like latch on a second. And I hung on to I think Fiona and Betsy for a bit. And I'm trying to remember when Fiona made her move. Was it like mile 19 or 20? I think it was
I think it's
19.
something around there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was somewhere around there. And I remember at the time thinking I had a couple options. I I knew it was her first marathon. So I was like, there's a good chance she might come back. And I was like, if not, I think I can close over the like last 4 miles if I just keep her in eyesight. So I decided to just hang back and run with Betsy. But I think Betsy started the hurt. She made a gesture to me at one point where I thought she was like, "Come help share the lead," but or come help like Reel and Fiona. But I think she was actually like hurting, like just past me maybe in hindsight. Um, so then I kept Fiona within eyesight, and around like mile 21, I heard Ray say like, "Last 4 miles, pick it up," because that was kind of our plan all along. And so I get to 22, and I was like, "Oh, I'm actually very like pretty tired. I was like, I thought I'd be able to just like reel her in. And I don't know if it was like, I did kind of feel like I was starting to like run low on energy. So I didn't know if it was like that or if I was just tired. I was doing the math and I was like, I think like just keep running this pace and the last mile just close. Um, but the last mile felt like the longest mile ever. I was like, I'm so tired. And it was like, I was ready for that finish line. So yeah, I definitely like Fiona looked amazing. When I was thinking she might come back, I was wrong on that because she ran that like it was not her debut. She looked like just such a natural out there. So yeah, I think we're sending a good team to Paris.
Yeah, she dropped at 5:09, I think at like mile 25 it might have been. I was like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah.
Like you and her were the only two were like, well, Fiona wasn't slowing down even if you were getting a little bit tired.
But it was like over such a short period of time, it grew really big. So I was like, okay, I think people are slowing down a lot. So just keep running this pace, and because like you can't like to close a 90-second gap if I keep running the same pace would yeah you'd have to be running very very fast. Um, so yeah, I did know what was going on around behind me. I was aware, but I was also unable to reel in Fiona. So I was just like, okay, just keep running this pace and close that last mile.
Who was Team Sisson out on the course, and like how often do you have people to really feed you, you know, intel or instructions on what to do? Like how did you set that up?
I actually only I probably shouldn't say this. I only heard Shane and Ray. um, but I had my parents, my in-laws, my sister, and I had my best friend and her husband and another friend that drove up from Miami. So I had this huge support team. And I could hear Go Emily, but I remember hearing Ray at mile 21 saying to wind it or pick it up the last 4 miles. So I remember that. And then I remember actually talking to Shane earlier in the race at mile 8. We actually talked. He was like, "Go M," and I just like turned to him and I like shook my head. I'm like, "I've got another side stitch," and he was like, "Breathe!" He just like shouted it over like the crowd. He might have added some swear words, but I'll just keep it at that. He was like, and I was like, "That's a good idea. I'll just try breathing." um,
Amazing.
yeah.
When you kind of look back at this race, what are you most proud of, I guess? Was it just not panicking in certain moments? Like you
Yeah.
made another Olympic team and that was the ultimate goal and it was successful. But I guess like other than that, what are the benchmarks for success that you have to take away from this race?
Yeah, I'm proud of the decisions I made. I'm proud of how I uh, handled that early on. Um, yeah, that's actually what I was referencing at the end of the race when I like looked up at Dina. Was I was feeling a little low and negative um, around 8 miles when I was thinking it wasn't my day, and then I saw her on the lead vehicle, and like I have her book like literally right there. And she talks all about like having like a positive mindset and when you feel those negative thoughts creeping in see what you can do to either like kind of change like reframe them or turn things around. And it was like when I looked at her I was like, okay, what would Dina do? And that's like kind of when I snapped into action and tried to I felt like a lot more positive and upbeat about um, things as things improved along the course. So I'm proud of that, and I'm just proud to make another Olympic team. I don't know how, like, yeah, I don't know how many track and field athletes make a second Olympic team or a third, or it's just it's so tough. So yeah, I'm just really excited for it, and yeah, overall really happy.
It's I guess not as often talked about just sort of like this sisterhood among like the top American marathoners in history. And you've got some epic photos from Chicago and breaking
Yeah,
the record where it's you, Joni, and you know, Kira, and you've been in these circles enough through a variety of different races, whether it's Beach to Beacon or some of these other events. What is sort of that friendship like? And have you had moments along the way where you've turned to them for any sort of advice? Like it's anyone can read Dina's book, but you have her number as well, probably.
yeah. No, I have everyone's number. It's funny. Anytime I get a text, Joni actually texts me not like all the time, but I do get texts from her. And whenever I get like, she sends the nicest text, and I'm like always blushing. And Shane's like, Shane knows. He's like, Joni texted you. I was like, yeah. No, it's genuine, and it means a lot. I have people I can turn to ask questions, and I have like, and even like the people that came before me that I don't know personally that well, I still look up to them and I still admire what they did more now than ever. It's like funny, when I was younger, I feel like I was asked all the time, who do you look up to in the sport the most? And I don't know if I actually really had a good answer. And now that I'm like further along in my career and a bit older, actually, like I'm like, oh, I actually know like who I really look up to. And I feel like anytime, like this past week, if I was like feeling pressure, for example, to perform, I think of Dina, I think of Joni, like Molly, Des, Kara, Shalane, everyone that came before me and had been in a similar position. And I'm like, well, they were under a lot of pressure and they were able to get it done. So I'm like, they did it. So I think I can do it too. And like, it is helpful when I can ask Molly for advice, or Des is also just awesome. She's great. I could turn to her, and she's very, very generous with her time. So yeah, I just feel really supported, and I hope someday I can be like that to the next up and coming group.
I was going to mention that, like, has it hit you in a way too that like of this group that we're sending, you're the veteran of them.
It's weird.
It's
Yeah.
got to be a little bit weird. So from you and your experience, you haven't even raced either one of them all that much before this too, right?
Uh, yeah. I'm trying to think. I
That's
don't.
the beauty of the
Yeah.
marathon, is just like how it brings together like a variety of
Yeah.
different talents. Like in the middle of the race, there was a moment where you and Jenny, I think, were like right next to each other. And I was like, oh, when's the last time Jenny and Emily were in a race
And
together? It must have been a while. And then I realized like the only other time was like Houston half that one year. And that Jenny ran,
oh
I think it was
yeah.
like 2 years ago. And I was like, the only time the two of you have raced. And so American women's distance running, you highlighted it in your Instagram post. It's just like at an all-time high. How do you kind of describe this talent? Because it's so cool that even
Hmm.
when the page turns and like we're in this new
Yeah.
era, new chapter, it's only getting better.
It really is only getting better. You can see it each group. It's getting bigger and bigger and deeper and deeper. When it was Joni, it really was just Joni at the top, and then it was Dina. But then after that, like you could tell they paved the way, because then it was Molly, Des, Shalane, Kara, like all kind of at the same time, and now like our group's gotten even bigger. So it's just yeah, like I am really thankful for them, and yeah, kind of showing us the ropes, and then I'm sure the next group will be even deeper and bigger. So yeah.
A lot of you got together in the weeks leading up to the trials at in the dog
The
park
dog party.
of all
Yeah, yeah.
places.
Yeah.
For what is
Yeah.
the discussion and chatter there? Because obviously, like there isn't strategy talk or just like checking in. Some people's Stravas are public, so you can see what people
Yeah.
are doing. But in that setting, are you talking about the race? Like what else do you guys have to
So,
talk about?
it's funny. That was actually a pretty successful dog party, because Dakotah and I were both there. I only caught the end of it, like the very end. Shane was there earlier with our dogs, but then I came, like he had left and I came. Um, and then yeah, Des just ran like she always does. Des ran great. Annie Frisbee had a good day. Trying to think who else was there. That yeah, it was successful. So come to our dog party if you want to run well. Des organizes it. Um, but yeah, no, I only really was there briefly because Des and I ended up doing a run together from it, an evening run. So I didn't actually get to talk too much or too long. We just kind of talked about it, like just got to meet all the dogs. But I don't know. I remember running with Des that evening, and yeah, it just kind of like, for the most part, like we were just talking about like, I don't know, not running related stuff, and then towards the end, I actually was just picking her brain a bit on things, and yeah, felt really lucky that she was willing to give advice and help me with some of that.
Love that. So you've got a little vacation planned, but when does preparation, I guess, for the Paris Olympics start, and it's a hilly course.
It is. It's a different. It. I think all hilly courses can be kind of different. Um, and this one is like a really, really, really big hill. So that you go up and then like so it's actually pretty flat for I want to say like the first 10 to 15K. And then you basically go up this huge hill and you come down it a little bit and then go up it a little bit more and then you come down the big hill. But then it's flat, I think, again for like 10 to 15K to the finish. So I need to start looking into it now. I didn't obviously want to think about it too much beforehand, but we're to find something that can be similar in New England. But I do think I will start the build up in Flagstaff, or not the build up. I'll start the pre build up. I want to go there for a month before I start actually marathon training, and I can definitely find something that is similar to that course there. I just don't know how hard I'll be training while I'm in Flagstaff, but I want to do that, come down, and then do the rest of the build at sea level. So if anyone in New England knows of any good hills, let me know.
Definitely. Um, this is, I guess, like an interesting one is because Tokyo was so protected because of COVID.
Mhm.
You have a tough decision to make when it comes to just like, oh, being there for the opening ceremonies and like in the
Yeah,
village for a long time. I know you've been so dialed in and focused on the trials, but that thought must have also like crept. It was like, oh, there's so many other things aside from the race that the Olympics brings, and it's like to sacrifice some of that for to focus on performance. It's a tricky balance.
it is. Yeah, I remember last year actually, or not last year. It feels like last year. I remember the last Olympics in Tokyo. People telling me that not everyone stays in the village, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. But the village, like by the time I got to Tokyo, like a lot of people had already left, so it actually wasn't that crazy. I think you were only allowed to stay in Tokyo for 24 hours, 48 hours after you last competed, and then you had to leave. So I got there like the second half, and so a bunch of people had already left, and the people that were still there, everyone's like, "Oh, it's normally very different than this. Usually, some people will come and stay here for a couple of days and then leave and get a hotel." So I have no idea. I'll talk to Ray, I'll talk to Molly about her experience, but yeah, I don't know. That's stuff we have to figure out. But I didn't want to. Yeah, I hadn't thought about this at all. It's only been a couple of days since the race, so I'll get around to planning all this.
I loved how before we started recording, it really did show how focused you've been on Orlando when I was like throwing out something about Milrose games and the Super
Yeah.
Bowl. And you're like, I didn't even know the Super Bowl was this weekend.
It's the weirdest feeling. It is kind of like this with every marathon, but especially like this with the Olympic trials. Uh, your life doesn't really go past race day. So even if I'm doing like Chicago or something, it kind of feels like that. Like whatever race day is, I can only see my life up until that day. And with the Olympic trials, it's like that, but times 10. So so yeah, we hadn't planned anything. It was really weird. The last few months of my life, I could only see up to February 3rd, right? Is that the day
Yeah.
you raised? Yeah. And so now it's like the other side of that. And I'm just like, whoa, I've got like all this stuff I have to figure out. I've got the rest of my life. Like life goes on. So it is kind of a weird feeling. I don't know if other marathoners feel that way, but that's how it's always felt to me. And I don't know why, but other distances and events never felt like that before.
Was there anything in particular you sacrificed for the entire build up for this one that you're like, oh, like I gave up chocolate for the build and I haven't had that. Now I'll get to enjoy that for a bit. Or I don't know, was there any sort of indulgence?
The one thing I'm looking forward to that we were cautious about as the race got closer was we just stopped like doing like lots of stuff like with lots of friends, like especially around the holidays. Like I feel like it's tough because like our build is in like the cold and flu season. So I spent Thanksgiving with my family. We had some friends over for New Year's, but for the most part, like if we were meeting up with friends, we were just like it was almost like living like back in kind of 2020. We'd like go to restaurants outside and yeah, just do like smaller meetups like we just have people over at our Airbnb or something. So I'm just looking forward to like getting to hang out with my friends and family and just not have to live in a bubble. So that I think is the hardest part. We only really did that for like the month before. Once it got to like New Year's, we were like, okay, it's like kind of gotta put yourself in bubble wrap.
Yeah. All right. Final question I've got for you, Emily, is for the people who are listening to this, and obviously, like Olympic dreams are something that only happen to a very small population of people. But what is sort of like the advice that you have for those who are chasing like big dreams like this? And like, yeah, you've now hit it twice. Like, this is your second Olympics that you get to go to, but what makes this one feel different? And what was, I guess, the biggest learning from the past 4 years?
Wow, biggest learning from the past 4 years. I feel like I've learned. I don't know. Let me think about that for a second.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there's so many. It's been so many small takeaways. I guess this does feel different. I think we might have talked about this already, but it does feel different in that it's a completely different event from the last Olympics, and it's going to be a completely different experience. With it being taking place now, and get to have my family and friends come out and get to actually have a roommate in Tokyo. Rachel Schneider was Smith was my roommate in Tokyo, but she had to leave before I got there. And so I think just looking forward to having like that experience and getting to try to better my last performance at the Olympics. I'm hoping I can show up healthy this time, because that took up a lot of time and energy when I was there. So yeah, I'd like to. I don't know. I'm just excited about all this. I guess I think I'm kind of getting distracted, but yeah, I'm excited for another chance at it, another shot to line up with the best in the world, and excited just to be back there, because you never know like how many chances you get to represent you at like the U.S. at on the global stage. Like I feel like I've been really, really fortunate in my career, and I've gotten a lot of really cool opportunities, but still like they're just like they don't happen often. So I try to really savor the moments when something big happens and when I qualify for a team, and just really take advantage of the opportunity. And what have I learned most over the last 4 years? I feel like I've learned that I'll never like know it all. So just keep learning, like keep trying to figure out what works for me, but not get like just like have an open mind, I guess. I feel like I'm constantly learning about the marathon and about like my training and what really works and clicks for me. And yeah, just like kind of embracing that part. I guess that's the process. So yeah, embracing the process. I can't talk.
Final thing was plugging your shoe sponsor here,
Oh
friends
yeah.
of the program, New Balance.
Mm-hmm.
You went with the Pacer, right, for your
Yep.
race?
New Balance Pacer, which actually they're releasing they're releasing its like latest why can I think of the term?
The next
Latest
level
model.
up of
The
it?
next model, yeah, coming out the end of this year. I think it's in the fall, and I'm actually really excited to try it. I'm going to try it now that the Olympic trials are over. So I've been racing in the Pacer, and I love it. And I do think if anyone else out there is like me and they prefer a slightly lower stack height, uh, I think it's a really good option. If you don't like want to have a lower stack height for a marathon, I think it's an amazing shoe for 10Ks and half marathons. So I like the lower stack heights, but so yeah, I think it's a really good option for anyone that wants to try that.
The SC Elite 4, which was the
Mm-hmm.
shoe on my feet that broke 3 hours in the marathon in Houston. No,
Congratulations.
no other shoe was able to do that. That didn't sway your decision in the last couple of weeks. Of like, oh, you know what? It might break an American record again. And
I nearly decided to completely change my plan. Yeah. So almost.
almost. Emily, I appreciate you doing this, and I'm super excited, to follow along in your build up to the Paris Olympics, and keep the reels coming. Your workout reels and
Oh,
and all
thanks.
that stuff, A+ quality content. Like
Oh,
I've got
thank you.
multiple teammates of mine who send them, and they're like, "Why does her form look so perfect?" And I was like,
Well,
"Well, that's just Emily."
Well, the whole point of that, so my husband actually, it was intentional. We were trying to take a lot more videos of this build because we're like, we're gonna figure out what broke down and caused the side stitch. So like every workout, he got a video, and my chiropractor John Ball would take a look, and he was like, "You look great. Everything looks good." You're like, nothing's gonna break down. Anyway, yeah. So like I said, keep learning.
Thanks, Emily.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.